All right, so there are breaking developments in the Fani Willis Nathan Wade judicial saga, and my goodness, I have not derived this much legal pleasure from a judicial saga since the Jussie Smollett judicial saga. There's breaking news today or yesterday, which followed the other breaking news of yesterday, and that was the Trump team filing a motion basically disclosing the cell data as per an investigator who had collected the cell data from an AT&T request and then prepared a graph, what he called a heat chart, and the results of this search showing that over the 11-month period prior to Nathan Wade's contract, he and Fani Willis had been texting each other, just a cool 20 some odd thousand times in 11 months, that they had had something like 2,000 phone calls. But the best piece of the data was that one night prior to the contract being solidified with Nathan Wade, Nathan got on a phone call with Fani Willis at 11:30, give or take, p.m., that's before midnight, and arrived at Fani Willis's place, as per the cell tracking data, at 12:35 a.m., and then stayed until 4:55 a.m., at which point his cell was seen leaving Fani Willis's yurty apartment. Oh my goodness, it's wild. The news of the day before that was that the judge, Scott McAfee, had donated $150 to Fani Willis's campaign in 2020, that he had worked under Fani. By all accounts, not that big of a deal, given the very small incestuous relationship that is the world of law, especially in Georgia, pun intended. Well, okay, you'll all remember, as of the second day of the hearing from the week before last week, the judge said he's going to take the Terrence Bradley privilege argument and review the text messages in camera. Terrence Bradley, for those of you who don't know, is the lawyer, former partner, former partner, and now we know former friend of Nathan Wade, who was invoking privilege to refuse to answer questions as to when he became aware of or knew of the existence of Fani Willis's relationship with Nathan Wade, because he pleaded that it was all privileged because it became information that he acquired from his representation of Nathan Wade in the context of Nathan Wade's divorce from his now ex-wife, Jocelyn Wade. Terrence Bradley invoked privilege over and over again, and the judge said, yeah, okay, fine, I'll look at this stuff in camera, which means confidentially, ex parte, not with the other parties being present, to determine if Terrence Bradley is properly invoking privilege. You'll recall that what happened at the end of the hearing on day 2 last week, Anna Cross, the state's attorney, Fani Willis's attorney, eviscerated, destroyed, excoriated, publicly judicially executed Terrence Bradley by bringing up an absolutely unrelated story, accusation, allegation of sexual assault on one of the employees at Nathan Wade's law firm. I guess the only thing trying to prove is that Nathan Wade is such an honorable man that he got rid of Terrence Bradley after this alleged sexual assault. Okay, but they excoriate Terrence Bradley and make him look like a liar, to the point where the judge even says, well, he's been invoking privilege this entire time, and now that it doesn't seem that he understands what it means, I'm going to have to go and review all of this stuff accordingly, because he invoked privilege to say why he could not explain why he left Nathan Wade's law firm or the partnership, and then it became known through Anna Cross's cross-examination that it might have had something to do with alleged improper conduct, which he was improperly describing as protected under privilege, and then Scott McAfee says, if the dude was wrong here, he might have been wrong all of the time, and now I'm going to go over and look at it. We thought this in-camera review was going to happen, or did in fact happen, after the hearing Friday, a week before yesterday, as of the time of shooting this vlog. It seems that it didn't happen. And it seems that it didn't happen because it seems that Nathan Wade filed something of an emergency motion to prevent, enjoin the judge from even reviewing the information in camera, on the basis that even that would be an unjust, unwarranted infringement on solicitor-client privilege. And he filed this motion. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's not worth going through in its entirety. It reeks of irony, by the way, that you have the judge being called upon to respect privilege in the Georgia RICO case, when you literally have Trump's attorneys being persecuted for legal advice that they gave to Trump in the context of the Georgia challenge. The irony will not be lost except on the most dense of partisan hacks who suffer from TDS. So set aside the irony that Nathan Wade is now asking that his solicitor-client privilege be respected, whereas this entire RICO case is predicated on not respecting Trump's solicitor-client privilege with Jenna Ellis, Jeff Clark, and a number of his other attorneys. Set that aside. Nathan Wade is basically in full panic mode, and I have an underlying theory here. You remember they did mention the crime fraud exception last week during the hearing. I didn't really think much of it. But now I'm actually thinking that Nathan Wade and Terrence Bradley, they had some texts going on between them. This is my own personal theory, just reading through this motion. They probably had some texts in which Nathan Wade might have been asking his attorney, Terrence Bradley, how he can go about concealing some of his assets from his wife. That seems like a very logical thing, unrelated to this particular case, but that might be a very pressing concern, inciting Nathan Wade to do all he can to prevent this judge from seeing that. Because above and beyond perjury on the stand, which I think is now undeniable, above and beyond misconduct, which I think is now undeniable, above and beyond an apparent, if not at the very least, the appearance of conflict of interest, which I think is undeniable, there might be some other exposure here that we are not privy to, but I think this might be it. So Nathan Wade files this emergency motion, says you can't even look at it. And by the way, just reading from it, because it's beautiful. It was in bold and underlined in the motion, but I highlighted it and circled it for your pleasure here. But start from the top. Moreover, the defendants were allowed broad leeway to pry into the private life of Special Prosecutor Wade in an unprecedented and public manner, spanning 2 full days of testimony. The defendants sought to introduce intrusive and legally irrelevant personal details of multiple people's lives for the world to watch unfold in real time, but still no credible evidence exists in the record to support their tenuous claims. If the court were now to disregard, quote, the most sacred of all legally recognized privileges, end quote, whose, quote, preservation is essential to the just and orderly operation of our legal system, end quote, it would be a step too far, and Special Prosecutor Wade is constrained to object. Underlined and in bold, the court should not conduct the examination under any circumstances. The attorney-client privilege communications at issue between Wade and his own former attorney Bradley made during the course of and in relation to Bradley's representation of Wade must, bold and underlined, be protected from disclosure. Hashtag confession through projection. Accuse your enemies of doing what you are doing so as to create confusion. Can you imagine Wade is now making an accusation of adding unnecessary personal details when he just brought in Terrence Bradley's alleged issue with a former employee that was totally irrelevant to this case? Can you imagine Nathan Wade now saying we must protect and preserve attorney-client privilege at all costs when they are literally persecuting and prosecuting Trump's attorneys literally for legal advice? They literally gave it them. Yes, I'm using literally in the context of the Georgia contestation. Appreciate the irony. You know, Robert Barnes always says you can be a criminal and you can be dumb, but you just can't be a dumb criminal. And it looks like with Fannie Willis and Nathan Wade, we have 2 dumb criminals. The court has already held at least 14 times that attorney-client privilege applies to the communications at issue. As the court has already acknowledged, the record clearly shows that 1, an attorney-client relationship was formed when Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade hired Terrence Bradley to represent him in his divorce in 2015. 2, the attorney-client relationship existed at least until late 2022, and the attorney-client privilege continues through today. 3, the attorney-client relationship was in the context of Wade's divorce proceedings. 4, any alleged communications made by Wade to Bradley concerning any alleged, quote, personal relationship, end quote, would have been made in confidence and would have been directly related to the matter in which Bradley represented Wade. And 5, Wade has never waived any attorney-client privilege as it relates to any statements made to Bradley in the course of the representation. Specifically, the court found, and he's quoting the judge, I think the law is clear that money doesn't even have to change hands to establish an attorney-client relationship. I'm making a finding based on the evidence that has already been presented, namely the fact that he signed pleadings and attended depositions on Mr. Wade's behalf that an attorney-client relationship did exist at some point. Now, it's very easy to play Monday morning quarterback, backseat driver. As my father says, those who don't do criticize, and it's very easy for those who haven't done anything to find fault in the work that other people have done. But Anna Cross might have wanted to think about these things when she undermined Terrence Bradley's credibility and made him look like a liar, that now the judge is saying, yeah, where I did agree with, or at least believe presumptively, what Terrence Bradley was saying and his legal assessments, well, now I'm no longer inclined to do that. So yes, I am going to go back over this and look to see what exactly Terrence Bradley understands as being privileged. And then they try to cite Georgia law. Georgia law clearly prohibits compelled disclosure of the attorney-client privilege communications at issue, even in camera. Wade and his counsel through this pleading then go on to cite a case which I don't even think supports their position, and I dare say even undermines their position. It's a case in which a kid who was seeing a psychiatrist took his own life, and then the parents wanted to get the communications between the psychiatrist and their kid, and the psychiatrist said, no, I'm not communicating to the opposing party privileged communications, and the judge actually said, as far as I understand in this case, I'll look it over to see whether or not we compel disclosure to the other party, thus proving two things. One, the judge can look at it in camera, and distinguishing that case from this case, nobody's even asking for it to be communicated yet to the other party. They're just asking that the judge look it over. So I don't even understand what this case proves. In their own mind, it seems to me that they just undermined yet again their own case. And then they conclude with the following. Here, the court has already determined that all of the alleged communications in question between Special Prosecutor Wade and Bradley concerning any alleged, quote, personal relationships, end quote, are protected by attorney-client privilege, and that neither an exception nor a waiver apply. For the reasons set forth above, Special Prosecutor Wade is therefore compelled to object to any in-camera examination of Bradley that may unlawfully compel Bradley to disclose those privileged communications to any person. Yeah, no, here's where you blew it. When you made Terrence Bradley look like an idiot who didn't understand what solicitor-client privilege was as relates to the reasons for which he departed the partnership from Nathan Wade, you made that decision when you chose to make him look like an idiot liar who didn't understand what privilege was, and now the judge is within his rights to go back and say, holy crap, whatever benefit of the doubt I was giving his professional assessment in the past, I'm no longer giving it now. And it's not hard to conceive that there might have been some communications that would certainly not have fallen within the context of a solicitor-client relationship. Like, for example, if Wade is texting Bradley to boast about that 4-hour evening that he had with Fannie Willis back before the contract was signed. You screwed up, and you screwed up big time, and we're going to have this carry on next Friday, and I cannot wait for next Friday, March 1st. I will be live streaming this, but those are the latest developments in the gift that keeps on giving, the Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade disqualification hearings. And my goodness, it really seems that the only people guilty of any RICO collaboration here are Fannie Willis, Nathan Wade, and anybody else who participated in this scheme. It's glorious. It's glorious to watch the meltdown in real time. It's glorious to watch the humiliation in real time when you are filled with hate to the point that you are willing to break the law in order to persecute your political adversaries. My goodness, it's only a matter of time before it comes back to bite you in the ass. Stay tuned. March 1st. It's going to be awesome. And if you like what I do, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, drop a comment in the comments section. Viva Frei on Rumble, Viva Frei on Twitter, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, where we will certainly be talking about this tomorrow night. And now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!
Mr. Bradley previously testified that the reason he left the firm was totally and completely covered by privilege. When asked by the state, he went into a factual scenario that, to my mind, I don't see how it relates to privilege at all. And so now I'm left wondering if Mr. Bradley has been properly interpreting privilege this entire time. And I think the only way I can cure that is by having that in-camera conversation with him.